Welcome to the three-part series, Go from Reactive to Fully Proactive with Graylog. We designed this series because these days we're all stretched. Log data is expanding in volume and complexity. To keep pace, most people are working in a reactive mode. We're going to walk you through how to become fully proactive so you can get that time back in your day. Hello, I'm Jeff Darrington, Senior Technical Marketing Manager here at Graylog. Welcome to Session 2 in the series, Parameterized Search and Dashboards. Picking up from alerts and notifications in Session 1, it's time to investigate. This is where complexity meets Graylog's flexibility with parameterized search and dashboards, and the value of asking questions in your environment. Let's look at how parameterized dashboards will give you deeper visibility and faster response to common search problems. Let's look at how parameterized dashboards can get you closer to the root cause analysis in your alerts. First, let's start at search. As we've discussed previously, this is where everything starts. Okay, let's get into my instance of Graylog. Here you're going to see the search window, and what we're going to do is start off with what we had done in the past with user_name, and we're going to look for the username that we've used in the past, test user 10. Once we hit enter on that, we've extended the data out for all messages. As my data is somewhat limited, so I have access to this data. As you can see, there's a variety of things going on with test user 10. Now what we're going to do is we're going to modify this slightly so that you don't actually have to type the username and the query all at once. We're going to break out into a parameter right from within the search window. So what we're going to do is we have to use the username field, which maps to the actual user login name. And then what we're going to do is enter the string username, and this is just a string value. When you hit enter, it's going to pop a window to declare this parameter or declare it. So we'll declare the parameter. It's going to spawn a new window, and we're going to call it username. The description, we'll just call it username info, just for naming it. And we're going to leave the type as generic for now, and we'll revisit this. So we hit submit. Now what we've done is we're in a search window, and we can now start changing this username window or username prompt to say test user 20. It's another user we have, and here's more log information in here. And as you see in the data, each user is just done by putting in that information in that one field. So what we want to do now is we want to take a modification of this. So what I'm going to do is edit this parameter. By default in 4.1, it comes up as a generic type. We're going to modify this and call it a dropdown. And we're going to utilize the values of the field as a dropdown. So here you still have to mention what field name you want to look at for the dropdown. So we're going to use username. We're going to limit it to a maximum of 20 users right now, just with the data that I have. And I'm going to hit submit. Now what you'll see is if I click this drop-down list, now you're going to see an ample amount of different users that are within the log data. So if I click on administrator, you're going to see log data come up for this particular user for administrator. And in this case, you can see the audit log was cleared by the administrator. So what we want to do is we're going to add some widgets, and we're going to go back to test user 20 again. And we're going to add this data, and we're going to add a parameter. We're going to add an aggregation. And this aggregation, we're going to edit it so we can get context around the user. We're going to use a data table for now, but we're going to group by a specific field. That field is GL2_event type, and in this event type, this will bring up what's happening in the data. We're going to limit it to 15, and we're just going to do a count in the metric. And now we'll update the preview, and you'll see now all the different types of events that are going on for log on, log off, and everything. We're going to actually change this to a pie chart, and we're going to apply the changes. So now we've got the username in the drop-down list. You can now leave this pie chart and select the individual users. So I'm going to use test user 10. You're going to see the activity that's going on with test user 10. We go to system, the system user. There is a user in here that is executing and doing some things with file deletion and processes and network connections. So as you change this for each individual user, you're going to see quite a different amount of things happening depending on what these different usernames are for. Now what we want to do is we'd want to save this search. I'm going to call this search a test user dash param for parameter, and we're going to create it. And by default, I'm just going to use the creation of a wildcard, and it will reload this with the wildcard. So the wildcard now will look at all users in this window and then map out the actual GL2 event type that we highlighted for every user. So now it's aggregated all of the different things that are going on with those individual accounts. So if you grab this parameter and we go back down to test user 20, you'll see it very quickly change and add the different things in it. If we duplicate this actual event in the aggregation and we modify it, we are going to change it to a data table and update the preview of it. And you'll see now the information here for this particular user. So this is a good way of doing investigations on an individual user by entering your parameters. Once you've saved this, we've done this in the past, and we can export it as a dashboard. So if I export this with a particular username, then what I can do is create reports. So if you want to closely monitor your administrator of your high privileged accounts, this is where you could create specific dashboards for your individual users. In this case, administrator 01 might be admin accounts that you want to keep an eye on. So because you've created these dashboards now show up in your reports area, and your reports area can be automating these reports from this information and send it out. So I'm going to pick administrator and continue. Now we've got a dashboard here. If we go back to the dashboards area and we save as test user param, and we're going to call it dashboard test user. Won't worry about the description and save it. And we'll enter a administrator again for the value and continue. And now you're seeing a report for the administrator. Now you know this dashboard is in the reports area. You can schedule this to go out. Now, if you want to add more features to this, you want to remove the actual log view, you can also add a new widget that we've got called log view. So if we click log view, you'll see all the messages getting aggregated as log view, and you can go in and add additional fields in log view. With timestamp, you can actually add the user underscore name as we talked about earlier. This will add it to the data. We'll apply it. And now you'll be filling out the data with the usernames attached. So if you didn't want to see the raw messages, you can remove this. And we've added our new feature, log view. And of course, you can go in and make this a little bit prettier than what it is currently. You can go in and edit the actual titles. And again, make the changes and save it. And now this dashboard that's been called test user parameter dashboard will show up in your area. Okay, next what we're going to do is we're going to get into another parameter, and what we want to look at is hashes. It's very common for different security teams to search for known vulnerabilities or known hash values for vulnerabilities or different things, indicators of compromise. So we're going to look for the hash MD5 and just to look for a wildcard search to see if there are any MD5 hashes in my logs, and there are. So let's jump this up, like we mentioned earlier, to a parameter. So we're going to call this the parameter hash underscore omni, because what we're going to need to do is declare it, which we have, and we'll just put in a description. Now that we've declared this parameter, we also need to add the additional hashes in their configuration. So in this case, we're going to add OR statements for any of the other SHA-1 SHA-256, SHA-512 into this parameter. So now that we've added this, now it's going to end up searching. Whenever we put in a hash value, it will pull it up for each one that is actually present. So to show this, what we can do is expand a given log, and we're going to scroll down till we look at this 256, and we're going to copy it and paste it in here. You will now see that this particular value comes up multiple times. This particular field, if we modified it and we wanted to change it to a dropdown, you're going to see all the hash values show up in the dropdown. So this type of field does not loan itself well to utilizing dropdowns. So we're going to leave this as is with the hash values, and we're going to go back to the wildcard to look up all the hash values. And then, of course, we can add different aggregations into this. So if we want to add different data tables or bar charts, we'll group it by potentially by user underscore name. It's a common one we like to use. And the metrics, we're just going to do a count on that. Count, and we're going to count, update the fields, and we show hash value for system changes, and we're going to duplicate this again, and we're going to change this one similar to what we did in the past. We're going to duplicate this one and make it a pie chart. Drop down here and update the preview and save it. So we've just got the one user account. So we haven't gone in and changed these names yet, but you can go in here and change these names. We'll go put in the account name. And here we can put in the account name. And save it. So we're going to save this and we're going to call it hash search. Now that we've saved it, we can utilize a parameter. We'll use a wildcard in this case. And it'll cycle it back in, and we're looking at it again. Now this is where you can then go and take it and export it to a dashboard like we did earlier and include that. Now, one slight twist on this. We've created now two different individual parameters. One was for user investigations of an individual user account. Those dashboards can be saved off. So if you had high profile, like I mentioned, high profile admin users, you wanted to run reports on them regularly. Here we've set up hash values. Now what we're going to do is we're going to combine those two together. So I am going to include a value, in this case, of user underscore name. And we're going to include the same thing we did, username earlier, but it's in the same window. So it's going to ask us to declare the parameters again. And this time we're going to utilize a dropdown for a specific value in a field, user underscore name, and submit it. I'm going to save this. Now with the username, we're going to put in a wildcard. We're going to see the values appearing. Now, you're looking at two values we put in here. It's an AND statement between the user and the hash value. So in this case, I know my hash values are available for my system username. So what you could do is drop down, and we'll see here with system, the values will now appear for the individual user down below. So if you're doing an investigation on a hash value, you will include, if you wanted, another log view. And in that log view, we'll edit the actual log view and include the username field. And we could also include the hash values. So if I put in here MD5, I can put in the hash underscore SHA-1. And I'm going to take out the raw message because I don't want to have the big message in here. And what we can do is add the hash value 512. And now we've got the log view of all of the hash values and the username associated with it. So if you put in a wildcard again here, you'll get all of the usernames and all of the hash values. If you want to look for a specific one, you can put in the actual individual hash value, but now it's returning the data in a better query. You're now taking the usernames and the hash values and tying them together. So now your investigation can drill into the actual usernames and the hash values. So in this case, these are hash values that are changing in the system for different system things in the existing logs. But this could be very handy for investigations for looking at things going wrong in your network with usernames and hash values. Hopefully this is a good one. You would save it. You can also now take this and load it and save it into export as a dashboard. This dashboard, I'm going to do a wildcard by default and the username wildcard by default. Create it. Now I'm going to save this. I'm going to call this, instead of just a hash search, it'll be hash dash username search. And save it, summary if you like. And now that we've created the value, we can search a wildcard again in the dashboard. And I'm going to use system in this case and continue. Now you've got the log value. You can go here, keep the data, add data that you like in your dashboard. And what's nice about this is it can be made available to other team members for investigations. So you can click this and export the data. You can also share it and share it to your users of Graylog. And also, once your dashboards are created, we covered earlier, you can save it to your dashboards, would bring it right into your reports area and send it out. Hopefully that provides a good couple parameters to show you what you can do with a mix of parameters. There are many others in your environment. And now to show you just one more quick little parameter, and I'm showing you my screen here of a multi-parameter search that it's not yet been saved to a dashboard. This is a security system, card access system actually, where logs are being brought in from different locations across a map. And what they are doing is swiping in and swiping out, getting access to their secure areas. And I've built a dashboard or a search with two different parameters, being the scope of the information. And for this one, I picked a department. So I've got a drop-down list of the departments in the data. So I can actually look at which IT-Sec analysts are in the building, and choose at the HR, see who's in the HR department still in the building, or the other departments in finance. Or if I want to go back to just a generic one, I can go into any department and then look by individual user card, pull up the information on the individual and find out when they've been in or out of the system. So it's just one other example of what you can do with parameters. I'm sure in your environment, you can sit back and think about the multiple different things that you daily query constantly, now knowing that you can build a dashboard and any member of your team can actually execute and run these searches without needing to actually create the searches themselves. You've got them all pre-populated, and all they got to do is drop it down in the drop-down menu or put in the data that you're familiar with, and away you go. You're done. Let's recap where we've gone. Search and find that event. Parameterize. Parameterize that search like usernames and hashes. Build out that search. Add the visualization value and add that data that you really want to know. Create that parameterized dashboard, save it, share it out to those that need to use it. And finally, now you've gone from reactive to proactive with Graylog. Let's get to the Q&A.